I'm going to continue with the recording this part experiment tonight. So it's mostly being used to help generate a transcript and a summary later on. So we won't do the microphone passing around doodad. Welcome to the Business Agility Meetup. It is June. It is raining outside. It is cold, but not as cold as it's going to be. The mandatory bits and bobs. So if you haven't been before, but I think absolutely everyone here has been here before because new faces don't show up when it's raining. The emergency exits are right here, another one at the back, and the two bathrooms are at the back. I'm not even sure if the light is working on the bathroom that's closest to us. No, still broken. Anyways, one of them works, one out of two ain't bad. This is the Business Agility Meetup. It's loosely affiliated as the community front of the Business Agility Institute, and how very convenient that we have a co-founder of the Business Agility Institute here tonight with Evan, who is going to talk to us about how the domains of business agility and a few other things have evolved. If you haven't caught up with the news, and I think you might talk about it a little bit, there has been a merger between the Business Agility Institute and IC Agile, which is generating this X2A. So we'll hear a bit about that, but that's all wrapped up into why the domains need updating. And it's not just about time, because trying to be nimble organizations, we realize that things do shift over time, so it is worth going back and checking that. But also, I think now that we're trying to frame it across broader sets of audiences, we might guess through. Before I hand it over to Evan, as always, like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, or owners of this land. Reconciliation Week finished yesterday. So, like, what's the Mabo Day? So the Mabo judgment, is that the right way to call it? Like the decision, that's it, yeah, through the court case, like that sort of annulled terra nullius, if you will. But related to that, by Queen Victoria Market, and thanks for the research as always, Isabel, there is Narm Nargum, so that's the Melbourne Knowledge in Wurundjeri Wurrung. So it's like an exhibition that sort of speaks about, and library that speaks about the knowledge of the space from the Aboriginal peoples of the area. So something to potentially go check out. If you've got kids or whatever, there's like school holidays coming out. What are you going to do with this time? There's an option.
Spectrum, it's World Donut Day tomorrow.
Ooh!
World Donut Day on Vic Markets on Sunday.
Right. So you can combine World Donut Day with a reason of learning if we wanted to. So with that, Evan, if we could please welcome him and talk through. And I will give you the clippy on microphone-y thingy that will help us transcribe. So thanks again for joining us.
All right. So, small group, thank you for coming despite the weather, and I really appreciate all of you for coming. It's a small group, so let's keep this casual and friendly and ask questions, interrupt me. We will go off on random tangents and it will be fun. I will rant at certain points about things that I'm passionate about. And I don't know what I'm going to rant about yet, because that usually happens in the moment. Like Martin said, the big news, in February, we announced that we had merged with IC Agile. For those of you who don't know, IC Agile is a global education certification provider. They work in a similar way, for example, if you're familiar with Scrum Alliance and the CSM certifications. IC Agile has been operating in, I'd say 14 years, about really just diving and helping trainers to educate and certify their education against an industry standard set of learning objectives, both in the Agile world and in other, let's call it associated areas like software, product, and coaching and so forth. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about that, but obviously if people do have questions around IC Agile, happy to share a little bit around where IC Agile is going. For those of you who are interested in this space, there will be an announcement on the 11th of June, so next week, talking about or starting to expose the next evolution of IC Agile, with the full details to be announced and shared on July 14th. Bastille Day, as I've been pointed out. But happy to talk about that. But X2A is the joint entity. So IC Agile and BAI have come together to form X2A. This is the commercialization engine. It's the engine that allows BAI, who continues to exist, to focus on the research and the assessments and really doing what it is that we do best. Now, what it is that we're trying to do here is really start to help organizations think about what does it take to be tomorrow ready. And we want to make a very clear distinction between the ideas of being future-proof, which we don't think is a good idea. Future-proof, like waterproof. The future can't come in. We can continue to do what we've always done in the future. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, companies want to keep doing what they're currently doing into the future. So there is value in being future-proof. But the reality is that you need to work in ways that you cannot predict. What you offer tomorrow may not be, and will not be, what you offer today. So organizations need to be ready for tomorrow, ready for the future, rather than protect themselves from the future. And that's very much what the three organizations have aligned towards to try to create. It's not about agile. It's not even about business agility. It's about helping organizations and individuals be tomorrow ready. Does that distinction make sense? So why? Well, customers are changing. What they expect, they've got more options. The ability to move between companies continues to change. Their attention is split. This damn thing keeps dragging people's attention away from you, your company, into other random things out there. So how do you keep up? How do you adjust? The ways of working, the worlds of agile. Agile continues to be relevant. The demand for agile has actually grown in the last, say, 6 to 12 months compared to the few years prior to that. We're not, I mean, let's be honest, the heyday of 2019, we're not there anymore, right? But as AI becomes more prevalent and the recognition that organizations need to work faster, agility, agile is becoming more and more important. You can't use AI effectively if you can't be agile. Your workforce keeps changing. What it is that your workforce is trying to do, how they expect to work with you. Each of you as change agents or whether you're consultants, whether you're individual employees, your role and your expectations of what a good company looks like, I'm guessing has changed and will continue to change. And we have generational shift. My daughter is about to turn 14. I'll be honest, I've stopped asking her what she wants to be when she grows up because I have no idea what job she's going to have when she hits university, even if she wants to go to university, who knows? Though she's good at maths, so I will encourage her to go to university. But that's not my decision, that's hers. The point is that what she expects, what she wants, what she holds her employers responsible for in the kind of works that she wants to do is very different to when we started our careers, right? And that's going to keep changing. And the strategy, the technology, everything keeps changing. So, quick question for everyone here. What else? Right? What have you seen that's changing? What have you seen that's evolving out there in the world today? People can't handle a lot of work. Yeah.
They used to? Is that the thing?
I think so, because rightfully this disturbs people a lot, and there's software that's built that keeps pinging you all the time.
Yeah. So that is actually.
Thank you, deep work.
There's a great article, and I can dig out the link for people, but it talks about the difference between manager time and maker time, and talks how managers operate in half-hour blocks. That's what our calendars look like. Makers, developers, like individual contributors work in half-day blocks. And the problem is, if that half-day block is interrupted, you've basically lost the productivity for that block of work. So this article is old. This article is 15 years old probably, and it really just talks about like why managers shouldn't be putting meetings in the middle of their workers' day, because even though that's how you work, you're literally breaking it down. The problem is that with all of these disruptions and everything else, yes, we almost have like a built-in disruption. So that deep work is hard. But also add to that we did research on AI last year, and we found a couple of key, we have a whole bunch of findings to try and get into, but one of the things that we found was that there are some key skills that are lacking in junior workers, individual contributors. And these are skills that are traditionally management skills. Managers are used to creating value through other people. Individual contributors create value hands on keyboard. Now, if you don't do that anymore, if you're creating value through your AI counterpart, and this is especially true in software development, the skill set, one of the key skill sets, for example, was quality control. As a developer, the first act of quality control is in the act of creation. Oh, I don't like that line, that's not going to work, I'll delete it, I'll try again. You don't do that if you're prompt engineering, vibe coding, whatever you want to call it. If, in that instance, the first act of quality control is a review. And I will tell you that is a different skill set that most individuals don't have. So if you ever wonder why, how did that mistake slip through? Why didn't you catch it? It's because they don't actually have the fundamental skill to be able to work in that way. They've never been taught it. Right? And anyway, again, rant, off topic, but you are entirely correct. Like the focus, the attention, and even the ways of working. Max.
Can I ask you, are you saying that people are, what do you call that, they're just doing the minimum, they don't want to do any
Quiet quitting.
quiet quitting, that's exactly right.
I wouldn't say that.
Is that what you're saying?
I think they're just overwhelmed.
I don't. That's not a blanket statement. There are people who will still work, but there are people who get completely distracted with their phones or Slack notifications, Teams notifications, and they can't do deep work, as you said. So that's where I found the change, as purely as I have grown older and I've seen different types of workplaces, different countries, different cities. So I feel that.
So, go on. No, I'll let you finish.
Plus there's the whole bullshit of meeting you have to have a meeting. I mean, the amount of times that I've said this meeting should be an email, if you don't have catering, don't invite me.
I like that. So quiet quitting is a organizational problem, not a generational issue. So a bad organization, and I mean, back in the day it was called working to plan. That's what unions would call quiet quitting. It's not a new strategy, but when an organization is operating poorly, then that's the kind of response you're going to get. The issues around that are more systemic, which are the interrupt. And I will say, again, it's less about the individual and more about the environment that we've created for people. Right?
How about soft skills?
Oh, yes.
Like, I feel like those are not as
Which
prevalent.
Haven't we given up on the word soft skills?
Have we?
Yeah, because it implies hard skills.
Well,
And the hard soft
well,
delineation was never a
well,
very...
whatever we call it now, but that's, you know.
So we call them human skills and functional skills, whatever you want to call them. Andrew.
So there's a couple of really interesting things here. One is, there's no question that the ratio of noise to signal is just getting bigger exponentially. And what's the challenge for people is we don't have the mature enough attention mechanisms to know how to distinguish noise from signal from noise and how to pay the right attention to things. So that's a skill that everyone has to get better at learning. Part of the answer to that is the second point you made about the difference between makers and managers. That gap is starting to narrow. and it's narrowing because the maker role is getting more automated.
Yep.
Which means the maker has to learn to behave a bit more like the manager, and the manager has to learn to
Bit.
behave a bit more like the manager. So the lines are blurring there. So what we're seeing is a challenge around skill shifting.
Yep.
To summarize it in one word. And the big shift that is happening in the background is that we are going from a world that we've built based on people with T-shaped skills, you know, deep expertise in a single domain with a thin layer of soft skills at the top, to what's required in this world to make sense of it and to survive and adapt is M-shaped skills, which is multiple deep domain knowledge with really good connecting skills, which is those social human skills. So that the people we hired that are really, really good engineers can't talk to anyone else and can't do anything else and panic if you give them a deadline. They're not going to survive this. They're in trouble. They just don't have the right personality type and the right skill profile, and changing them is going to be hard work.
We did research on this. We were commissioned by the Scrum Alliance, when was it, 2023?
Time moves too fast.
It was years and years ago. It was like 3 years ago. And yeah, we actually looked at what were the skill sets that were in demand with hiring managers. And it's exactly as you say. The individuals who were, it was really interesting. So we were commissioned by Scrum Alliance. So the research was obviously focused on agile. Right? So one of the roles that we looked at was Scrum Masters. Right? And so we interviewed hiring managers and we interviewed candidates to try and understand the patterns of behavior. And we had this really weird contradiction, right? Think about the law of supply and demand, right? Supply and demand are always, or theoretically, always like in balance, right? This was an instance where we were interviewing hiring managers who were saying, we can't find Scrum Masters to fill the jobs. And then we were interviewing candidates Scrum Masters to say, I can't find a job. How can both be true? It breaks the law of economics. But when we actually looked into it, we looked at what the hiring managers were actually hiring for. They weren't hiring for Scrum Master skill sets. That was one of the pillars. They were looking for these multidisciplinary, we call it in the research, we call it pie-shaped, M-shaped, cone-shaped, whatever you want to call it. But there was a second line.
So it's a component of what they were hiring.
Correct. It was called Scrum Master. It was so in the research we call it the power of and. So
the biggest shift is that technology is starting, and it's starting now, but it is going to happen and it's going to keep happening. It's starting to digitise elements of the workforce, right?
yes,
Starting to what, sorry?
digitise.
Digitise elements of the workforce.
Yeah.
And longer term, it will mechanise through robots. That's longer term. That's like the next shift that
okay.
happens in 10, 15
I can go down a rant here. I'm stopping. I'm taking a breath. I'm not going to go down this rant because there is so much richness in what you've just said. But you are
But
correct.
the implication of that is, let's just go through
Okay.
Let's talk about the digitisation.
Yeah.
Right? Is that you're going to end up with flatter structures and less specialist roles. Particularly the smaller the company, the less need for specialists and the more for multi-skilled, maybe generalists.
So I would slightly disagree with that. So I think that the specialists are going to have complementary skills, but I actually think there's going to be more of a need for specialization for the deep specialist skills. Because if we look at the ability to apply judgment, to go, was this correct? You need the specialist understanding to go, no, what AI has produced is rubbish. Right? So I think there's actually going to be a greater need for that specialization, but it's going to has to be complemented with other things.
So the gnarly problem.
A wicked problem, I believe it's called. Yeah.
So one of the things that I think hopefully tomorrow will bring is a total rejigging of the hiring process.
So what we found, so interestingly,
I think we're going to stay here till about 2 a.m. by the
yeah, quite possibly. What we found in the research was that the big problem was that the hiring process wasn't keeping up with how hiring was occurring. So when we looked at the job descriptions, who was hired met the job descriptions, but it wasn't enough. Job descriptions were like what they knew they wanted. But when we actually looked at, okay, so you hired Andrew, right? Why Andrew over all the other candidates? Well, Andrew had this, this, and this. And those three things aren't in the job descriptions. Right? The actual the job description is almost like the entry criteria, right? But what gets you hired, nobody knows until they do the interviews. It's like, oh, Andrew's got these 3 skills. We didn't know we needed them, but yes, Andrew's the person, right?
So
And
ads are basically a list of like technical skills.
yeah.
Which
Oh,
are totally irrelevant.
and of course, we have AI. So you've got AI, automated systems, reading AI-generated resumes. And by the way, anyone here who's job hunting or putting out resumes and so forth, the data says that AI systems prefer AI-generated resumes. Right?
I think that the opposite is true as well. So while your point is about employers looking for people that have more skills, at the same time, it's anecdotal, but what I've been witnessing is more like, yes, I want this person, whether it's a plumber, but like heavy work with toilets in banks. Who cares? Like, no. Everyone knows our poop is very different. It's very specialized. So look, I'm a project manager, and the amount of jobs that you see, project manager must have worked in insurance, must have worked in this. And it's
Yep.
like, who cares, mate? I'm a project manager. No. So it's
just
my
don't
point is I'm finding
understand.
the opposite to that as well. So.
So
The opposite's also true.
I think we're actually arguing more or less the same thing. They're looking for those other skills. But can a project manager who doesn't have that insurance skill fill the role? Of course they could. But this is one of the challenges with the. We are way off topic by the way. But one of the issues here is that you've got like the hiring systems are just out of date compared to what people are looking for. There's a natural lag. And in an environment where it's a lot of people looking for work, there's a lot of just almost social issues at play here as well, that around fairness and equity that just, I mean, it is a minefield.
So
right?
comms, context, and collaboration.
You got us to all agree at the end.
Well done.
Next slide. Well, this is the next slide I'm trying to get.
I
So,
have a question about this slide.
hey, hang on. Let me actually.
15th of September. Can you achieve your purpose no matter what tomorrow brings? 15th of September 2026.
I have literally.
What tomorrow brings.
So I've come from the future. I have literally no idea why that date is there. Okay, so, hang on, bear with me. So, I want people, so who here can tell me what the definition of business agility is?
Whatever you say, whatever you do, I believe in you. The Messiah.
Come on, it's the business agility meetup. Come on.
Is it good luck, have fun, don't die?
All right. Business agility.
Prioritization is achieving your purpose no matter what tomorrow brings.
Yep. It is. Right? It is the behaviors. It is the behaviors, capabilities, and ways of working that affords an organization the freedom, the flexibility, and resilience to achieve its purpose, no matter what the future brings, right? Or no matter what tomorrow brings. Right? So, so as a reminder, we're talking tomorrow already, right? So the whole point, and this is where the 3 organizations have come together, is that we're all looking at tomorrow-ready organizations. And that is fundamental into the definition of business agility. Can you, as an organization or as an individual, achieve your purpose no matter what tomorrow brings? That is what tomorrow-ready means for you, for your organization. Leo.
To your previous slide, but you asked what the future bringing, and we I think focused on like details in the organization. What about, were you expecting things about like climate change and like
Yeah.
we're going to run out of water and run out of space and when we do
So-
12 billion.
Who here predicted war in Iran? Right? Who here predicted, well done, Max. I hope you shorted those stocks. But the point is we have a social political environment that is just, again, massively disrupted. Right? And that is having an impact on every organization. We were talking with a bank in the Ukraine, because we're going to do some assessments with this organization. And you'd think, war-torn country, war-torn for what, 3 years now? No, the banks are having record profits.
Really?
Uh, because the government's doing everything they can to stabilize the economic system, because they need money to keep flowing into the country so that they can actually fund the war efforts, which means that, so they're putting everything they can into ensuring that the banks are actually stable and sustainable and profitable. So it's this really interesting scenario where you would expect like massive, like negative impact, but actually it's gone up. So disruption doesn't have to be bad, right? But it's about tomorrow's going to bring something different. Now, they have other problems because their workers can get conscripted. Right? So you have literally no idea whether the person you're working with today, you're going to work with tomorrow.
Because they're going to work.
Because they're going to war. They've been conscripted into the war effort. So you've got all of these very complex interplay of global and local and cultural and operational things that are disrupting organizations, and not in the way that you can predict. Right? So let's talk about the domains of business agility. Some of you will have seen these, right? But not this. Right?
It's a new DNA.
It's a new DNA. Some of you will have seen the previous version, because the previous version has been around now for 5 years. We published 2020, October 2020 is when we published the version 4, which is what the last version was, of the domains of business agility. The periodic table that you will all know, hopefully most of you will know and remember. We've been taking a lot of feedback over the last 5 years that look at what does business agility look like for organizations today? And what we have found is what we had needed some refinement, or in some cases, complete changing. So I'm going to run through this relatively quickly, again, because time, but also to give a little bit of time for conversation. We've kept the same structure. We're using a DNA metaphor as opposed to the periodic table metaphor, primarily because, this is how it was pitched to me. It's like, that's a brilliant idea, we're doing that. DNA is the building blocks of life. Right? What we're talking about are the building blocks of organizations. Not necessarily the building blocks, not necessarily, how to put it, the word agile does not appear here at all. Right? And to be fair, it hasn't done in the domains for I think it was version 2 the last time we used the word agile in the domains. Right? What we are talking about here is what does it take for an organization to be tomorrow ready? Whether they're using agile, whether they're using something else, doesn't matter. What are those building blocks? The 5 domains remain quite similar. We have changed some language. For example, engaged culture becomes high performance culture. Why? Because in the conversations we've had with leaders, when they talk about what they want from their culture, they don't use the word, we want an engaged culture anymore. They will use the words, we want a high performance culture. Right? So we're using the language that the executives go, oh yes, we want that. Right? In other cases, like value-based delivery, hasn't changed at all. Flexible operations becomes adaptive operations, again, just because there's minor tweaks here and there. The domains have not changed drastically. Some wording changes. The capabilities, on the other hand, have changed. And I will go through them in a little bit of detail. But the highlight here, there is one brand new domain. Right? There is one significantly modified domain, and some tweaks and improvements across the board. But underneath it all, unchanged are behaviors. This is still a behavioral model. There are now 85 behaviors, not 84, because of course we have a brand new domain, and obviously we've reused behaviors in a few places. We've worked on the language of behaviors a little bit, but for research purposes, because we've studied 2,500 organizations, we need our behavioral data from 5 years ago to be comparable to what we do today. So by and large, the behaviors have not changed that much.
Like a longitudinal study.
Correct. But the key here, and the key that you all have to take away, is if you want to create these capabilities, you're going to create it through behavioral change. That has never, that's always been our position. That's what the data says. If you want to be an agile organization, if you want to work in new ways, try not to drop something. If you want to work in new ways, then somebody has to do something differently. And that's a behavioral change. So, before I go into it, yeah, sorry?
If you can't change the people, change the people.
I believe the quote is if you can't change your company, change your company, which I much prefer. But I will say, and I mean, I'm going to be very, very pragmatic, there are times when you have to change your people. That is actually a legitimate tactic. Organizations tend not to do it well, though.
Say, can I just ask you, so who drives this behavioral change? Who drives it?
Who do you think?
Well, the thing, in my experience, what happens is we have a project paradigm, whatever it is, maybe it's agile, maybe it's hybrid waterfall or whatever, and that keeps going until there is a significant change
A trigger,
that
yeah.
happens, and that's why I'm asking you. I'll give you an example.
No,
You know,
let me...
Where I am right now, everything was waterfall. Everything
Yep.
was pretty much waterfall. You get an approval, then you go to the next phase, you get another approval, then the next phase. And so
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
But when I suggested, like, let's do a use case, let's do a more agile way, they said yes, but, you know, they're still stuck with the old way.
So
This is why I'm asking you in organizations.
let me give you two answers. I'm going to give you the straight answer, and then I'm going to answer you the correct answer. Right?
Maybe my experience is anecdotal, I don't know.
No, your experience is fairly common. Right? So the straight answer is it's got to come from the top. If your senior leaders do not support and promote and model the new behaviors, that behavioral change will not occur. And we see this in the negative. When a leader leaves and a new leader comes in, their pattern of behavior, their mental model of how work should occur, poisons the organization. If they are not an agile leader, if they are not an agile thinker, agility in the organization will be gone within 6 months.
Could be.
So
I can see that.
that's the straight answer. Let me give you the correct answer. If we look at behavioral science and we take a page out of behavioral economics, right? Behavioral economics, and I'm going to hugely and grossly simplify it here, basically says that people are unpredictable, but they behave unpredictably in predictable ways. Right? So what that means is, so in standard economics, it says if something is cheaper and the functionality is the same, you would buy the cheaper thing. So why does everyone have a bloody iPhone? Right? The iPhone breaks standard economic models. The functionality is the same, and in fact, some cases worse than an Android. But people, they like it, they have a history, so they are predictably unpredictable in what they're going to buy. Brand, preference, also like their friends are using it. They don't want the blue tick. For some reason, I never got why that was an issue. But this predictable unpredictability means that in an organization, if you are going to create behavioral change, what you want to do is actually create an environment where those behaviors become natural. And that's what protects you from leadership change. So let me give you the example I always use is the concept of a behavioral nudge. And there's a book called Nudge, it's really good. I strongly recommend it. Behavioral nudge says that, I'll give you an example. You are a government. You want to change the behaviors of society. Right? You want everybody to wear a seatbelt. Why? Because seatbelts save lives. Right? They reduce the cost on the health system when there's a car accident. Brilliant, absolutely. So what do? You make it law. Right? You mandate it. Great, you got 70% compliance. Right? Not enough. Right? You're a government. You need everyone to wear it. Otherwise, people are still dying here. Right? So what do? You put on demerit points. You put a fine. Right? Police catch you without a seatbelt, $400, 3 points off your license. Great, maybe you're now at 80%, 90%. But right now, the status quo, right? We're going back to the 70s here. The easiest thing for you to do, the status quo, you get in the car, you start driving. Right? Putting on your seatbelt is slower. It's half a second, right? But it takes more time to do that. It is an imposition to the organic flow of get in the car, start driving. You want 100%, you need a behavioral nudge. You need to make the environment around you create the behavior that you need. So you mandate, you tell all of the car manufacturers to make a really annoying little sound that if you start driving without a seatbelt, nothing happens. You can still drive, but it's going beep, beep, beep. And now the status quo has changed. It is easier now to start driving after you put the seatbelt on than to drive with the seatbelt
The
off.
other thing they did was they got the advertising people in who came up with clever campaigns like click, clap, clap back. So the kids would sit there and go, Dad, put your seatbelt on.
Absolutely.
That's the
So-
biggest nudge in the world, kids.
Kids are big nudges. I will grant you that fact.
The kids would learn at school that smoking
Click,
was
clap,
bad.
front and back.
That's it. So the point here is that if you want to create behavioral change, you want to create an environment where that behavior becomes natural. And from a change management standpoint, it's much easier then to establish a sustainable change so that will survive. Like when your kids keep kicking you, like that leader coming in and going, we're not going to do this agile thing, the entire environment is geared towards it. They're the ones who are going to change to the environment. Right? So that's why it's like, I'm going to give you the direct answer and then the correct answer. Which is why the funding model and KPIs. I mean, there's a great quote by W. Edwards Deming. If you give a manager a measurable target, they will destroy the company in order to achieve it. Right? Because that measure is what the behavior you're going to get. So there's a whole bunch, anyway, again, off topic, but
Change behavior, change the commission plan of the salesperson.
and in fact, if you want to look at, so the Royal Commission into misconduct into the banking sector, Commissioner Haynes literally said that the incentive and remuneration structure of banks, specifically focused on short-term financial results, is what led to the vast majority of those fraudulent and corrupt behaviors that they found in the Royal Commission, right? Because that was the behavior that was incentivized. It's not the behavior that they asked for. It's not the behavior that was in the process, right? The process said, don't do this, but the incentives created that behavior. Right? Again, off topic. But, so, if you're going to if you're going to change an organization, you're going to have to do it through behavioral change. So, what are the main changes here? I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. So, responsive customer centricity becomes customer-centered strategy. Just a name change, just to make it a little bit more focused on the strategic part of it, as opposed to it's customer centricity for a reason, as opposed to just being customer-centric. You're creating a customer-centered strategy. Sense respond proactively hasn't changed. You want, as an organization, the capability to both sense market changes and respond to market changes. Fiercely connect with the customer used to be fiercely champion the customer. That change is primarily just some people felt that champion was too like rah, like go customer, as opposed to, no, you actually, there's an effort here. You need to actually understand them, connect with them, learn from them in order to be able to advocate for them.
Connect implies more of an equal exchange and an equal exchange demonstrated meaning and value.
That's it. Adapt strategy seamlessly. Moved, that was in the operations domain. We moved this here to focus on center strategy on customer outcomes, because strategic agility or adaptive strategy in and of itself is irrelevant. What are you adapting to? You're adapting to your customers' changing needs. Your strategy as an organization needs to align with what impact, what outcome are you making for your customers. Hence the shift to customer centricity, to strategy. The next change was people-first leadership to human-centered leadership. I'll be honest, that text change is entirely branding. We talk about, X2A talks about the human advantage, so we wanted the word human in here somewhere, so people became human. Be blunt, that's the only reason that one has changed. Engage diverse perspectives used to be integrate diverse ideas. Main reason for this change is that ideas are cheap. Right? The point about collecting those insights is your perspective. Right? What have you seen? What have you experienced? Rather than, do you have an idea for us? Right? So hence, the behaviors behind it haven't really changed. It's just around really narrowing in and getting precise about what the capability is meant to be. Now we get to the brand new capability. Did not exist 2 months ago. Mobilize for change. Why is this here? Because when we talk to leaders about the challenge that they have in their organization, right, the question you literally just asked, right, you're asking all of these changes. Right? You want the organization to behave differently. Right? What do we need? What's the capability that allows us to change?
Training and comms.
And the answer is not training and comms. Right? Apologies to any ADCAR or ProSci people in the room. Right? So if you're going to create behavioral change, you have to mobilize the organization behind it. That change has to become a strategic priority. It's got to be something that you can do regularly. Change is not something that happens because you're running a change program. It happens because the organization is behind the change that you're trying to make.
Change happens when you surround yourselves with people who can act as evangelists on your behalf, people who actually believe in it as much as you do and are going to be your first line of defence rather than just talking the words.
I love it. I'm going to steal what you said. That's a better way of describing it.
Change happens when people understand what it means.
This, by the way, is the very, very first time I presented this model publicly. So thank you for that help. But yes, so that's the big shift that we have around mobilizing for change. Empower with accountability has not changed. Literally the same words we had before. This is a two-edged sword. Empowerment without accountability is laissez-faire. Accountability without empowerment is command and control. You need both in balance. Hopefully, both at a high level. High degrees of empowerment require high degrees of accountability. And that's where you want to be. Most organizations have low levels of empowerment and scaling degrees of accountability depending on the kind of organization that you're in. Champion people's growth. Used to be, it's always been leadership. This was realize people's potential. Those words were a bit fluffy. Champion people's growth is a little bit more direct in terms of this is what you're trying to do. Yes?
Is that about getting people fat?
like feeding the mind.
Evan, can I, so just from my understanding, do you mind reviewing the empower with accountability part of it? Because you said it beautifully, empower with
Empowerment without accountability is laissez-faire. Accountability without empowerment is command and control. You need them both in balance. High degrees, equal. We have, it's literally in the text. You can read it. All right, value-based delivery, no change. It was called value-based delivery 2 months ago. It's still called value-based delivery.
I would question the word orchestrate in human AI workflows because I think
Do not get me started on this.
I think we've moved past just orchestrating because the real value comes from responsible human AI workflows.
So responsible is not a verb, which is a problem there, but we went through so many variations of this. So,
I can imagine.
so this one is, I won't say it's new, but is a major evolution. The capability used to be, unleash workflow creatively. Now, the issue with that one was the word creatively, people just didn't get. Workflows, everyone knows what it is. Unleash, it's a bit fluffy. Now, compared to 2020, AI is a bit of a big deal in a lot of organizations, rightly or wrongly. And a lot of organizations are trying to figure out how do you create the workflows where AI is a member of that workflow. How do you, and most organizations, and we have this in our research from last year, of the top constraints, the top 6 constraints that we found that was limiting organizations' ability to see a positive return on investment from AI, only one related to technology. That was data quality. Right? All of the other top constraints related to the business environment it operated within. I like to say that it's like if you're expecting AI to create value or help you create value 3 times faster, can your leaders make decisions 3 times faster?
Governance.
And the answer was no, they couldn't. So the point about this one is like, how do you create that workflow? And it doesn't have to be AI, it can be intelligent, other robotics, other intelligent systems, or in fact, just human intelligence. Right? So, but you need those workflows to be seamless, end to end. Now, is orchestrate the right word? I don't know, but.
There's some really good research in the latest Microsoft Work Trends report that just came out last month, which actually, they do pretty rigorous research.
Yeah.
They get Harvard and other people involved. And looking at that issue of what actually drives adoption, guess what? Leadership culture right up the top, not technology. But also what's getting in the way of it and how, what are the real barriers, and they came up with a nice little matrix where it's worth having a look at.
That's it.
Is it also leadership?
No, it was about mismatches. So, sometimes you've got staff with high capabilities, but the organisation isn't supporting them by providing tech that actually works and training and things like that. And, so you get people in this frustrated zone where potential's there, it's just unrealised. So it was that kind of, it was quite good research.
Yeah, I'll actually have to look at that. That was the Microsoft Tech Trends?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Okay, the next one, engaged culture became high performance culture. Like I said, that's the language that executives are using, so we're reflecting their language. Engaged transparently and courageously, which is all about like courageous, like sharing information, being transparent, has been replaced with, or at least refined to be, embrace respectful candor. Really focusing in on the human element of, it's not just transparency for transparency's sake, but there's a reason for this. Right? And the word respectful there is because, there's a lot of assholes who hide behind being transparent, being with candor. So hence the word respectful, just to catch the assholes.
Canada has been taken to basically I can diss you as much as I want.
Yeah, Max.
One question, in today's world, pretty much a lot of it is online, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have this interaction. You don't have this personal. It's very, where I work, 90% of the meetings are online.
So
I would say 95%. So, and people, what happens in meetings is sometimes they don't even put on their camera. You don't even know
So
exactly.
that's-
They just answer the questions that they've been asked.
So that's
They've been asked, okay, have you done this, or what's the issue? Have you got this done? Have you got an issue? Have you got a blocker?
Yeah.
And they say, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this today, and that's it.
So that's a different
So-
problem.
That's the paradigm.
That's a very different problem. That's one of engagement, respect. That's one of meetings being used for the sake of meetings and no one actually understanding the value of it. I can tell you that I have worked from home for 10 years. So BAI, hang on, another announcement. According to LinkedIn, because I completely forgot, 4 days ago, I've been 10 years at BAI. We founded BAI 10 years ago. Longest I've never worked anywhere long enough to get long service leave. And I will say, when you run your own business, I don't know if I can take 3 months off, but there you go. My point is, I've worked online now for 10 years. The engagement I have with all of my colleagues is not what you're describing. The work, the online and the disengagement is a symptom of something else, nothing to do with online. Now, don't get me wrong, online makes some things harder. Don't get me wrong, as a manager, I have to put very different effort in to build those relationships. So, to make it worse, every single one of my colleagues is not in this country. I am the only person of my organization in Australia. Everyone else is in the US, one's in Germany, one's in Canada, right? But the other 10 are in the US. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yes, it's not pleasant. But to be fair, they also work until 6 or 7, so that we've built a respect, right? So that we can align. I'm lucky that most of them are West Coast, not all, but most. But my point is that yes, online introduces other challenges, right? But it doesn't change any of these. You still need that candor. You still need those to build. And if I'll go back to the leadership ones, right? It still needs those relationships. You still need to build human contact in order to create, to develop people.
It's a myth that you can't build human connections.
This is my point,
online.
Evan.
Yeah.
If you're just meeting 5% of the time, 95% of the time, you're just on a camera, and sometimes you're not even on camera. You're just talking about.
It's a different issue. So why aren't they on camera? Why don't they want to engage? What is it about the system that's been built around them that makes that it's easier for them to disengage and just answer the questions that they've asked?
Yeah.
Right? That can be a skill issue. That can be psychological safety. There's a whole bunch of different. I don't want to diagnose an organization, but what you're describing is a cultural challenge, right? Not an online one. Online makes it harder, but they're not the reason.
More people want hybrid work. They don't want
Yeah.
to come to your office,
But
right?
Max, you can have side
Right.
conversations. But you
Most
can have
people
side,
don't
no,
want.
No, you can have side conversations on Teams as well, right during the meeting, because there are times. So I think
You can. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. I'm saying on average, people are just going to respond to the project manager saying, okay.
So I'll give you an example.
I'm saying on
I do an online meeting. It was basically every week for 4 years or so. Nobody was forced to be there. It wasn't to do with any kind of like working, all that sort of stuff, but it was set up really, really well. And it's just started back up again after a year's hiatus, and it's like meeting friends again.
Yeah.
And they're all over the world.
So speaking of, you can take this offline for a side conversation. Let's take this offline for a side conversation. You have some points that these are harder environments, but the key point here is that online makes it harder. It's a symptom of what the challenge is here, but it is not the cause of that, of what you're describing. So, timing-wise, high performance culture. Let's go. There we go. So, we spoke about embracing respectful candor. Cultivating continuous learning used to be cultivate a learning organization. We shifted that. The word learning organization it lost meaning, so we just used the words that was a little bit clearer. Again, more or less the same. Organizations need to continuously learn. And learning, by the way, is not about education. That is a piece of it, but it's you run experiments, you try something, it didn't work, what can you learn from that? Right? You tried something, it did work, what can you learn from that? Right? So learning is in everything that you do. Act as one organization. Used to be act as one, we just added the word organization. Again, clarity.
How is that being misinterpreted?
So interestingly, no, I've literally had people come to me and say, does this mean that everyone has to be in one team, like a team of 200 people? I'm like, no, that's not what it means. Right? But here again, it's just more about just getting clarity in that. But In this, we're looking at the capability. It doesn't matter if you've got 2,000 employees, 200,000 employees. If they're not all pointed in the same direction, you're not going to create anything of any value anytime soon. And then lastly, nurture trust and psychological safety. Used to be embed psychological safety. We've added the word trust into this one because psych safety is, in and of itself, it's a bit of a buzzword. It has value, but we wanted to really emphasize that psych safety is one point of it. The reason for this is to build a trusted working environment, right? Where employees trust their managers, managers trust their staff. You have that context of yeah, I can trust you to do your job. I can trust you to show up, to create value. I trust that you care for our customers. And if I can't trust you, then maybe you shouldn't be working here. Or maybe I shouldn't be working here, one way or the other. Paul.
Do you need psychological in that stuff? Could that be just nurture trust and safety?
It could be, but psych safety's got a
Yeah, but you also want psychosocial, you also want actual physical safety, yada yada.
you are correct, and this is where the challenge is, how do we convey these in a couple of words? We're using psych safety because that's a shortcut in people's minds. They already have some of that definition in their head. But you are right, it is not.
It's ingrained in workplace safety psychology, but that's Australia. Not everyone in the world has made that leap.
That is true. All right, lastly, adaptive ops. So this used to be flexible operations. Again, just clarity, adaptive is more meaningful than just flexible. Funds work dynamically, no change, right? One of my favorite domains, can you move money from where it's currently allocated to where it needs to be without impediment or delay? Most organizations can't. No? Rapidly reorganized structures. There used to be reorganized structures fluidly. We just put in the word rapidly here rather than fluidly. Again, more clarity, and just to really make it clear that we're not talking about a restructure. Right? We are talking about, can you move people to where they need to be, when they need to be there, without impediment or delay? Paul. Because it's not just organized, you don't just do it once.
Yeah, but why have an active parentheses?
You could be creating something new and then you're not reorganizing it.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like, we had the parentheses in the past.
Really such a thing as nothing?
Yeah.
You're reorganizing, you need to organize.
That's a totally fair point, and I don't have a good answer for it. Andrew.
Question on that one, is it reorganising the resources or reorganising the structures? Because both, they're different things, and one tends to, the reallocation, the reorienting of the resources tends to happen first, then we reorganise the structure to match the way that we've deployed the resources to the work.
So
and they tend to be slightly out of sync with each other.
Yep.
And on different cycles sometimes.
So when you're moving people around, then, how do I put this? There's a degree of maturity in what you're describing.
Yeah.
So an immature organization will do what you say,
So
where
talk about structures
move
because
people
that's what
around, then we'll like
relates to.
rechange like reporting lines and that sort of thing. Highly mature organization. So if you ever want to see the best employee handbook in the world, right, Google Valve Employee Handbook. Right? Those of you who are computer gamers will know Valve is a computer game company. They built Steam. Their employee handbook is a thing of beauty. Do you know how they reorganize structures as per their handbook? Right? You unplug your desk, you roll your desk to the new team, you plug it in. Right? That's it. That's how you join a new team. Right? Full stop. And you can choose to do that. You actually don't need to have your, people go, hey, can you come join our team for the next couple of weeks? We really need you. Bit of conversation.
Similar to the hire model as well.
Similar to the hire model, and there's a few other organizations and so forth.
Self-organizing?
So it's a form of self-organizing, yes. So that sort of like, that ability to create that fluid organization.
Incentivise self-organising. There are incentives that drive people to organise around particular outcomes.
I like it.
Yeah. So there are very mature models in terms of how this could work. But yes, the point is, like, regardless of how you do it, regardless of the maturity of your organization, You need the ability to rapidly reorganize. Right? Then, my favorite domain of all time, unchanged for many years, balance, governance, and risk. Most organizations will spend $5 to save one. Right? And if you've heard me talk before, I have talked about this one so often. I'm going to not talk about it today, but it is my favorite. It is my favorite capability. Partly, it's also when we run profiles, when we study organizations, either fund work dynamically or balance, governance, and risk is, in 95% of the cases, the weakest capability for those organizations, because they just don't have those governance.
One thing that is starting to change in the governance and risk domain is that ethics is going from a background issue to a foreground issue.
We debated
And
putting
it's
ethics
a
into the...
capability that everyone's going to need to adapt to the future.
We debated putting ethics into this. Actually, there's a few places that at a behavior level, we actually do talk about ethics, but yeah. So,
We'll get there eventually. It's early days, but
It's still, yes, it's still the problem that people, organisations want to eliminate all risk. There is not enough money in the world to eliminate
correct.
all risk.
And the big shift is getting away from this mindset of how do I eliminate risk, how do I stop things, to how do I make things safe.
yeah,
It's a very simple mind shift,
Yes.
and it changes your culture and your operations.
absolutely.
But that's your getting to yes, getting to go. Yes.
Yeah. So, I've only got a few minutes left. So, let me get to, so that's the new domains, right? It's available on the BAI website. It's freely, it's under Creative Commons like it always has been. You can download them, you can use it commercially. You don't even need to tell us you're using it, though it's nice if you do tell us, because when we do updates, it's nice to be able to let people know that, oh, that thing that you were using, we've done a new version. We have so many people using the old version, and I don't know who they are, so it's really hard to tell them that we have a new version. Beside the point. So let me talk for a moment around BAI and X2A. One of the challenges that we've had as BAI is that as a research organization, we've got data from 2,500 organizations. We've got the insights as to what works, what doesn't work, what are the myths and misconceptions. But we've never sort of been able to actually say, here's what you should do. Right? Here's how you can solve those problems. I would always say to organizations who sort of engaged us to do research or engaged to do profiles, behavioral studies of their organization, I would say our job is to shine a light on the path ahead of you, but not to walk the path with you. Now, the problem is, so many organizations, it's like, we really need help. What is the next step? Right? So one of the things that we have put together as X2A, right, are what we are, I fought against this, what we are calling playbooks. And I want to be very, very, very clear, right, that these are not consulting playbooks. This is coming out of sports. These are plays. These are drills. Right? These are things, if you do it, like you repeat the drill, you repeat the play, you will develop a capability.
Not just that, but the concept of a play in sports, and I'm going to go deep on this one, right, is
I've got 3 minutes, so go deep really quickly.
you have formations, you have techniques, and from a single play as it's drawn up, you then have multiple options that you can,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you can adapt to what's presented to you. So it kind of fits really nicely with this.
That's what we're trying to do here. So,
So you have one play that can be executed in 10 different ways.
absolutely.
Simple ways.
And it builds out that muscle memory. It builds out when the other team is in a particular configuration, you know what to do because you
Correct.
built
It's all
those
based on
capabilities
cues.
based on
And they do
cues.
the same thing. They're looking for a cue. You put a man in motion, that means you're more likely to do this.
Correct. All right, so we're calling them playbooks, but these aren't McKinsey playbooks. So in 3 minutes, what we have done for the launch, and the X2A has been in existence now for only a few months, is we have developed 4 playbooks that look at common challenges that we have been faced with, as in companies have come to us with, over the last few years. Right? Number 1 is what we call vision to value. This playbook is looking at the product operating model, the project to product. This is looking at how you as an organization create products that resonate with your customers. Right? And we use the word resonate very clearly because it's not about being customer centric, it's not about building a product that everyone likes, it's about building a product that one very specific target segment loves, and then they will be your advocates. They will sell the product for you. Right? And so that's what we're talking about by vision to value.
The Apple model.
The Apple model.
They invented customer evangelism. It's the
Friction to flow. This is
And it's not just like what the customer wants, which is basically everything for nothing.
indeed. Well, no, the thing is, if you actually have something and you build a relationship, your customers want to pay you. And that's something that took me a long time to learn. Like my first business was in 2003 in Canberra. We did information management systems. And we did support for, I remember there was one doctor surgery that they were moving to a paperless doctor surgery. And I made friends with this wonderful Iranian woman who was the office manager. And I was always late invoicing them, right? Partly ADHD and partly because I always feel guilty asking for money. So it's the last thing I want to do, which as a business person is a really bad habit to get into. And she sat me down one day and she's like, Evan, we want to pay you. Please invoice us. So yeah, lesson hard learned. Anyway, friction to flow. My favorite because it's governance. Everyone's favorite topic. We know that some friction is good. Right? We know that friction is a positive, like if you're a surgeon, right, which leg, stop, check. That's good friction because the cost, the risk is too great. Right? Same surgeon, I've had a motorcycle accident, I'm bleeding out on the floor of the emergency room. Do not ask for permission. Do whatever you can to save my life. Mistakes might happen, right? But the risk of me dying is much greater if you wait. Right? That's about friction to flow.
As opposed to the texture on the leg and the form you have to sign.
That's it.
Which is there for a reason.
Which is there for a reason. So how do you create the right degree of governance for the risk that you have in your organization? Like friction, the friction side of an organization to that smooth flow. Very quickly, hierarchy to ownership. This is our empowerment playbook. This is all about how do you, the drills that leaders need to play in order to actually create that ability to empower and to develop the sense of ownership in their team. The number one complaint we hear from middle managers is, I'm trying to delegate, but no one's taking ownership. Right? Okay, have you taught them how to take ownership? Do they have that skill? No. All you've done is teach leaders, managers, how to delegate. You haven't taught anyone how to take ownership. Then lastly, now to next. This is our change management, change leadership. To all the points that we spoke about earlier, how do you create behavioral change, which I'm not going to get into because we've already gone down that rabbit hole. But how do you create that sustainable behavioral change through those triggers and nudges and the behavioral science behind it? So, I mean, technically there's time for Q&A, but also there's not. So,
There is, but there isn't.
thank you.
So, usual game plan here. We're gonna be hanging around for a bit. So if you do want to have throw the Q&A on the side, keep the conversation going, 100% welcome to do so. I have to vanish temporarily between 7:30 and 8 to chat to a customer, but Leo will still be around. So yeah, that's kind of the open thing. We don't yet have a plan for the July meetup, but we do have one for the August. So things coming together. We'll post things up on the meetup group / LinkedIn. It is Martin in July.
Okay.
I thought you were April.
Well, hang on, which date in July?
No. We will start this shit.
Does that coincide with the
Stop
World Cup?
confusing me. All right. Thanks again for your time, Evan. Really appreciate seeing the walkthrough.
Easy. Thank you very much.
Why are you going to the US?
To visit my cousins.
So you're not going for the World Cup?
Sorry?